everyone. Welcome to the Millen Sarma Show. I'm your host, Millen, and today my guest is Maria, who is an expat in Dubai, and she's been living there for the last 5 years. She's from the Philippines and moved to seek better opportunities in the marketing field. She's currently a full-time marketing specialist for a multinational B2B company, mental health advocate, and describes herself as an anti-discrimination warrior. And with all that in mind, Maria, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time to come on.
Thank you so much, Milan. I appreciate you having me on your show. It's a great pleasure.
Yes. Before we go on, I do just say it's pronounced Millen, my name. Just
Oh,
to
Millen.
yes,
Millen. I'm so sorry. Millen.
no worries. Yeah. So obviously, the first thing I want to ask is pretty unique. I don't have a guest every day that travels to another country like this. So I'm just curious. What was your transition moving to a native country in Dubai, and like, was your family supportive of this? Like, just anywhere you'd like to start, and I just want to hear your story about.
Right. Sure. I think that my story is a little bit. It's not that the typical expat story. Obviously, I finished the university when I was 19, and a month after, I already started my first job. Was doing. I thought to myself, I thought I was doing well. But my parents, let's say at that time, thought that I wasn't like very serious about my job or like serious about my work. So they thought I was just like taking it easy. I was just like being chill and stuff. So they were like, I think that you should kind of explore going abroad. Like, I think you should be more independent. I don't think you should keep on like relying on us. I think you're too comfortable here. We have a family friend in Dubai who could help you out for some time. You can stay there with them, find a job, and yeah, go find yourself. Like, be more independent. I'm like, okay,
Wow.
that's great. But they were like, sure, you can do that, but your sister is more important to like have a job there. If you don't find a job in Dubai, just come back. It's fine. Just be with your sister for some time. So that's kind of like the backstory of how um, we got in Dubai in the first place. And long story short, me and my sister came. She was not able to find a job. I was the one who got the job. She never really wanted to go to Dubai, so she went home. I stayed. And then 5 years after, I'm still here. And it's not the easiest. People think that when you're in Dubai, Dubai is this like glitz and glamour, fabulous place. Like, we drive Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and we have tigers and leopards as pets.
Right.
People think, right? People think that we have that kind of lifestyle, and to be honest, no, it's not the truth, and it's not that. It's not the case. Back home in the Philippines, I could tell you my life is pretty much very comfortable. Like, I could be there, stay there for the rest of my life, and I will be fine. I won't go hungry. But being Dubai, it was very different. When I was staying in the family friend's place, it was literally just like a spare small space in their house with like a bed. And I was like literally crying for a month because I'm like, I can't believe I went to this place and I'm staying in this kind of place. I'm grateful for that experience though, but I just never thought that that would kind of like be the life that I would have. And so I'm like crying for the last God knows how long weeks as soon as I got there. And then me and my sister, we would kind of do some touristy stuff just to like, explore the place. And then we realized like once we're here in Dubai, there's so many Filipinos here. Like, we felt like we were back in the Philippines. So we're like, okay, this is weird. Why does everybody look like us? Why is everybody from our country? It's not what we expected, right? It's really, I would say, crazy. And obviously you had that like typical Middle Eastern kind of, thinking in your head, like whatever negative that you see on the media. So it was really like I would say mix of so many overwhelming feelings, I would say, when we kind of transition. It wasn't the easiest. I stayed for some time in a very small place, like with other people, like in a shared accommodation with other people for a long time, for about like 2 years, I would say. And then when things got a little bit more comfortable, um, I moved out and now I'm kind of actually really enjoying Dubai. But that's probably one thing that, I kind of learned that, obviously the transition and moving out of your comfort zone, it's difficult. But once you're there and you start to like learn more about the place, the culture, and the people, kind of start to love it. I love Dubai, but I still don't drive a Ferrari or like a Lamborghini. If
Not
you were
yet,
gonna
right?
ask me that, not yet.
Right. So that's very interesting. Would you say that that look that's kind of, I guess, portrayed in movies or online or on the internet, Ferrari, Lamborghini, all those things, is that more so uh, a part of the population that's very minor, or is it just a bigger population compared to other cities like New York or things like that? Like, is it that prevalent there, or is it just kind of a misconception?
Let's say there are parts of Dubai. So I'm just gonna school you guys a little bit. Dubai is not the country, it's United Arab Emirates. And
Hmm.
Dubai is not even the capital of UAE, it's Abu Dhabi. It just so
Hmm.
happens that Dubai is the more popular one because it's the touristy place here in UAE. Honestly, yes. Compared to normal countries, I've been to a lot of different cities, mainly like in Europe. And I would say it's yes, we have really more sports car in the road compared to other cities. That's real, okay? But it's just not the entire Dubai. It's not the entire, I would say, population that would have sports car and stuff. Let's say that just a little bit of background as well. Here in UAE, there's probably like 11 to 13, 15% max locals. So the locals, the people that are from the United Arab Emirates, they're called Emiratis. They're
Hmm.
actually a minority in this country. And the rest, 85%, we're all expats. So let's say that all of the locals here in UAE, most of them would be like the richer ones. So they would have like sports car and stuff. Those that are like, let's say, kind of Western, from the Western side of the world, the Europeans maybe, or like the Brits, of course, because hashtag Brexit. They're probably the ones with like the luxury cars and stuff. It's just I would say that it's not like the most, I would say, accurate kind of breakdown of to who owns what. But there is, let's say, in UAE in general, there's one thing that I also have experienced is the pay gap. So you're kind of I actually discussed this in in my trailer podcast, where you are judged and compensated based on the color of your skin, based on your gender, based on your nationality, based on the country where you're from.
Hmm.
So if you're that's precisely the reason why I don't own a Lamborghini yet. But yes, that's the system here in UAE in general.
Okay. So would you say it's it's still? Let me ask you this. Hmm. Did you know this information prior to coming to Dubai, or was it more so you learned this as you lived here, as you work here, seeing all the Filipinos around you, talking with them, like etc.
Yeah, I did not expect that would be the case. I just learned that when I already started applying for jobs. So when I came and I started applying for jobs, and obviously, like, we had the family friend who was also obviously Filipino, they would kind of give you like expectations or like, well, advice where this is probably the good starting salary that you can get, or this is probably the least that you can get, blah blah, those sorts of things. And when I realized that, okay, this is only where I could start, in terms of like what kind of payment, how much I'm going to be paid. And I realized because it's because of my nationality, that's when I'm like, okay. And the beginning, I was like, okay, this is where I started. I'm like, okay, I think this is a really good like opportunity chance for me to like, just see what's out there for me, etc. But obviously, like as the years pass, and then I realize, and then like listen to other people's stories, like I could literally do exactly the same as another person. Say, for example, you and I, we would have the same qualities, background, experience whatsoever. But because you are, let's say, for example, a US passport holder, you're white, you're a guy, you will be paid much higher than me just
Mm.
because you hold a US passport, for
Mm.
example. And I learned that, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, but I can't do anything about that, right?
Hmm. Yeah, that's fascinating to hear. Because I hear things where I would think in the United States, hearing these things is a bit more exaggerated, in my opinion, just from hearing like pay gap and things like that. But yeah, I didn't even think of that in a place like Dubai, just because I always just with their perceptions like, oh, it's money everywhere, all this stuff. But does that do you believe that that had something to do with your sister not finding a job, or is it more so she just wasn't as lucky as you were, or you had more qualifications than her? Anything in that sort of realm.
Right. So my sister's a nurse, and obviously, like when you're a nurse outside of your home country, you should have like a different kind of license, at least I would
Oh,
say,
okay.
where you can operate or like function as a nurse, equivalent to the qualifications of the nurses here in UAE, for example. She was able to find a job like 3 months, 4 months down the line, but it, it just wasn't something that she wanted. Like I had the option to go back to the Philippines and say like, look, I don't want this kind of life. It's fake. Like whatever you guys see in the media, that's fake. That is
Mm.
not real. But you know what? I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that I was able to make decisions for myself by myself at the age of 20, that whatever I want to buy in the grocery, I could buy, and I don't have to ask my parents, "Hey, Dad, can I get this bag of chips?" No, I didn't have to like ask for permission anymore, right?
Right.
Or if I wanted to leave, if I wanted to go to the whatever bar, or if I want to go to a mall, whatever time I want, go home whatever time I want. Probably it's the independence that I enjoyed. So no matter what like other negativities were there in my environment, I was like, it's part of growing, really. Like I grew out of the thinking that I am only paid this much because of the color of my skin or because I'm from wherever, whichever country. Along the way, um, if you are paid or look at a certain way and you just allow others to look at you that way, people will look at you that way. But I had just
Mm.
thought, like, look, I'm not how you perceive me. Like, because, for example, Filipinos here in Dubai would have certain jobs. Let's say if you're a Filipino, you're only supposed to be in this type of job, maybe retail, maybe service, etc. You're probably not going to be in the office much, blah blah blah. Or like when you're Filipino, you're supposed to speak a certain way. Like you should have this kind of accent, this strong Filipino accent that your other Filipino people should have. And I don't have that. I don't work in retail. I
Mm.
don't work in service. And so you're kind of put in a certain box. You're categorized as somebody. And I realized, no, I'm just not the person that you're trying to put in that box. I have X number of skills. I know that I could do better. So I'm just trying to like prove what I can do and what I can offer to other people. And I think I've learned to like look past what I'm paid, how I look like, etc. And when you start seeing that with yourself, others will see that in you as well. And I don't kind of, face those, let's say, discrimination or bias
Mm.
anymore.
Yeah, that's really interesting point you made there. I have to say, as far as being categorized, and I think it's almost human nature to categorize certain people into certain boxes, and of course, certain places that's much more prevalent than others, obviously. And I think like in the Western world, it's almost, at least in the United States where I live, that's I would say is just the least. It's like as how do I put it? It's like much less, I guess, likely here just because there's people of all different backgrounds in the United States. But I would say, and that's one thing. How did you really um, confront that perception? Because you were saying that it doesn't bother you as much anymore, but you can't obviously you can't change the reactions or the beliefs of other people around you. So I'm just wondering how do you, maybe other Filipinos, other people, maybe friends you know, your family friend that you knew there, even your sister when she was there, how did they really fight this perception? I mean, not fight. That's kind of an odd word to use, but
Mm,
I guess confront this perception
right.
in a way that's in a way that's collaborative, not too combative. If you get what I'm saying.
Mm. That's a good question. I would say that the people that I found myself kind of surrounding with, the company that I was working for, there's not a lot of like young Filipino women that are kind of like my age, sort of, or not married. Most of the people that I kind of became friends with, at least in office and even outside of office, were like people that are married or like people that are older than me. They have kids. Um, so let's say that because there's a lot of Filipinos, how they kind of um, fought through those stereotypes whatsoever is through building a community, because they're like, let's say they're much older than me. They probably don't care as much as I do, or they've probably been like longer here in Dubai than I am, right? So they kind of use that community kind of to like not care about what others would say. But the thing is, it's not because maybe I'm like much younger or I care about what others would say. It's just that because I am different, people think that I'm different. Let's say I'm a little bit more noticed compared to others. So like just example, it's when I meet people outside of work or just the people that I first met at work, they would ask me like, how come you don't speak the same way that they do? Like it's especially because when obviously if I don't talk, they won't ask that question, right? Because there's nothing there. But the moment I
Right.
open my mouth, right, and they notice I don't speak the same way my counterparts, my Filipino people would talk, it's they would already notice. So because I'm different for them, it's noticed. But I think that there's no, I would say, formula um to like how to combat those things, right? He just really kind of embrace who you are. I think that's what I learned along the years. I've kind of embraced who I am. I've kind of become more comfortable in my skin, and however you want to perceive me, it's up to you. But the more that I think also another thing was the more that I get to travel to different places. I'm very lucky that in my current job I was able to like, travel to different places. I was able to become more confident in my skin because I realized that there's so many people that I met, and I realized I'm not actually that different from everybody. Like, yes, you could just look more aesthetically pleasing than I am because you're whiter than me, or you have bluer eyes than me, you have lighter hair color than I would. But actually, I realized we're all the same. Like you and I, we're both going to have problems about petty things. At the end of the day, you and I, we crap in the toilet. We're literally the same
Right.
breed, like, right? So that's how
Hmm.
I kind of cope with them. with all those
Hmm.
differences and stuff. You just have to really be more comfortable with your skin,
Hmm.
be more confident about who you are, and how others perceive you. It doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah, that's that's interesting comparison. Because something that I've noticed is, and I think you would probably agree with me on this, is that as you get as you gain more experience in life and get older, you become more secure in yourself. Because I think at a young age, we've all been more insecure about other things. What people have, I don't have that, they have that. Is because of their, how they look, etc. All these things. Um, so that's a really interesting point. Um, hmm. Yeah, I'm just curious to know. So you stated that a misconception in Dubai is that Lamborghinis, Ferraris, all those things isn't the majority of the whole is not the majority of the city. You know, is there anything else that's a huge misconception that maybe people in the Western world kind of over overstate too much? Because you stated that if regarding lifestyle and dating, there are some sort of misconceptions. I'm just curious if there's anything else you could tell us about the audience and I.
Sure. In terms of like lifestyle, I would say I pretty much describe the reason why it's not really the reality um, when it comes to what you see in media. Another misconception that probably I would like to share is kind of like let's talk about the dating thing. Maybe that would be like a little bit more, I would say, relevant, right, or
Hmm.
exciting to hear.
Sure, sure.
Let's just say let's just say that in terms of like dating, obviously because there are a lot of like Filipino people here, let's say like single young women, it's true that some of them would date other nationalities because of the money. So there probably somebody that needs a little bit more of, budget. Therefore, I'm going to be dating this person because dating a different nationality means they're earning much more, blah blah blah. You know the story, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, that's also kind of one thing because, as I mentioned, not all of the Filipinos here are like, let's say, in a certain job or like in a certain position. Some of the Filipinos here actually have been doing well. Like they own stuff, they are in a high position in a certain company, etc., etc. So yes, there are also some other Filipinos that are doing quite well here. Not necessarily that because somebody is from a certain nationality that everybody's going to be the same. So like when it comes to dating, for example, maybe just to like better relate it with how with my experience, I would say like I'm not the type to like be dating, for example, another nationality because of the money. I'm probably just dating you because you look fine, you are like a great conversationalist, you're smart, etc. But it does not have anything to do with your race. Especially here in Dubai, some races are, let's say it's not just limited to Filipinos. Every single race I would tell you would be put in certain categories. I'm telling you now that here in UAE we have maybe 100 plus different nationalities. Um, the different nationalities when it comes to lifestyle, dating, job, whatever, everybody is put in some certain stereotypes and stuff. It used to be like, let's say before, I think that when you say like Middle East, it's very strict or it's very like conservative. Now here in Dubai, I would say like laws are changing and like perception about unmarried couples are also kind of changing. So before they kind of have this rule where two people that are not married cannot live together. Like in
Hmm.
one roof, you guys cannot live together. But now things are kind of changing. I think it was like last year, I think, or early this year. They said like it's fine, even if you're not married, you can stay in one roof, and that's because maybe in terms of like real estate, there's a lot of spaces and there's low demand because people are not married, right? Those sorts of thing.
Right.
So the perception in those kind of things are also kind of changing. Maybe in the media there, they think that here it's very conservative. Some stuff are like a bit taboo, but it's actually very a little bit more open now, especially in Dubai, in areas where there are a lot of expats. It's very open. Um, yeah, I think that's one of the things that I kind of want to share as well, because maybe other people, for example, like in the U.S. or like in Europe, they think that here in Dubai there's so many like restrictions. No, we can actually drink alcohol, we can smoke, we can pretty much do whatever you guys do there as well. It's just
Hmm.
a little bit not as open, I would say. I mean, like for example, in Europe, there's a lot of or like in the US, you guys do a lot of PDA. Here, it's not that acceptable yet. It is a little bit, but not to the maximum, you know. So yeah,
Okay.
we still do some things that you can do there,
Hmm.
but in a a little bit
Minuscule fashion.
minimize. Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting because I would almost think that with so many tourists and expats and so many people coming into Dubai, I would think that it would almost be like hurtful to their economy if they were to just remain in one strict fashion, like you were stating. So I feel like it almost have to at least conform a little bit to like more modern lifestyle and things like that. So yeah, that's a good point you make with that. So as far as I guess I'll make a little transition. As far as lessons you learned, anything like really influential lesson that really stands out to you in like coming to Dubai as a young woman at age 20. Everything from like living in your friends, not friend, family friend's house, and all, and just your journey throughout, like in the workplace and your lifestyle with friends, your relationships, all these things. What are some like impactful life lessons you believe that you've learned, and maybe anything that other people can take, whether if they're planning to be an expat or even just in their general life, anything that really stands out to you.
Sure. I think in the last 5 years, I've learned so many things. Um, if there's one thing that I could start with, it's to never ever be afraid of getting out of your comfort zone. I think a lot of young people, um, they maybe tend to like stay wherever they think is comfortable, wherever their family is, their friends. Um, they're not very open to trying new things. If there's one thing I've learned, just step out of your comfort zone. Whether it's taking a job in another city, studying in another city, or whatever. Just try to do things that you're not normally doing, because if you are not going to go out of your comfort zone, you're never going to grow. You're going to keep, like, let's say, meeting the same kind of people. You're going to stumble upon the same kind of experience in the same kind of city, in the same place where your family is, in the same place where your friends are. And that's it. You already kind of know the positive stuff and the negative things in your environment, and you're gonna feel like, yeah, that's it. Like, I'm cool. Like, you think you're having fun, true, but you're not actually growing. You're not learning. That's it. Like, if you want to keep living a mediocre life, then go ahead and stay wherever you think you are comfortable in. But if you want to live a better life, if you actually want to start living, then you have to really just step out of the comfort zone. Because right now, for example, wherever you are, if you feel like you're stuck somewhere, you're just surviving. You're just living the day as is. Like, you wake up, eat, sleep, drink, whatever, repeat. That's it. That's not living. That's just going through the motions. But I would say step out of your comfort zone and start living and have the best life ever. Second thing I would say is Make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Keep on making mistakes. In fact, no one honestly in the corporate world, like when you, like for example, you're a university student, right? Once you enter the real world, quote and unquote, after school,
I've
you
heard
would
that so many times
realize,
from teachers and professors. The real world out there, like, ooh, it's so spooky and everything. Yeah.
right? You know, your professors and even my professors, they tell you, ah, you have to be prepared for the real world. Let me tell you one thing about the real world. There's no such thing as the quote and unquote real world. You know what? Whatever you're living in right now, your
Mhm.
situation, that's your real world, right? You're just transitioning to another part or phase in your life. When you get out of your university and stuff, I tell you, the people that you will meet, your future bosses, your other colleagues who are much older than you, much more experienced, are all just a bunch of kids, honestly, just trying to make it in life.
Hmm.
You think that your boss is acting like this boss, whatever. You think everybody's like an adult? No. We're all just these adults trying, we're all just these kids just trying to get in life. Like, you never really grow out of your kid
Hmm.
self, right? But
Hmm.
you just start learning things, or you just start to be a little bit more aware of what's happening. But I tell you, when you go to this quote unquote real world, everybody's just faking it. Like, we're all kids deep inside. We're just trying to be, or like acting like adults, but we're actually like kids and make mistakes. We make mistakes all the time. You think that your boss or your future whatever has their shit together. No, everyone is just really good at keeping their, everyone's just good
Hmm.
at hiding their shit. Everyone's messed up. We're all really just kids trying to be an adult in this world, trying not to mess up. But you know what? One thing I learned, keep making mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. Um you don't have to get the job. It's fine. You don't, end up with the right person in this relationship. You mess up, you get debts here and there. I don't know. You make mistake and it's okay. And you know what? Those mistakes will make you the person that you're supposed to be. Like me, I did not end up where I am now, just like in one straight line. I've made a lot of mistakes, and because of those mistakes, I've become the person that I am today. It actually made me a better person. It's probably not the most typical way to, like, be a better person, but really, it's really, you shouldn't be afraid of making mistakes. And the third thing I think that I've learned is that to never, I think it's kind of related to being in your comfort zone, but in terms of like surrounding yourself with people, once you're an adult, quote and unquote, once you've, you know, went out there and surround yourself with other people, relationships become, or friendships become intentional, where I would say, like, you really have to choose your people. Um, And I say this because me, after I finished school, and obviously, like, for some time, I stuck around my old friends, and then I moved to Dubai. I realized that if I keep on, if I stayed being friends with them for the longest time, I'm not going to be who I am today. Like, I'm still going to be that same person back in the university who maybe bullies this kid or maybe talks about whoever, gossips, etc., and complain about the smallest things. If you don't surround yourself with people that will make you better, this is what I always tell myself, like, it doesn't matter if, for example, the people that I'm surrounded with are like much older, or they're from a different nationality, or they're like in a much higher position than me. I'm okay with that because I think that when you surround yourself with people that are not like minded, you're actually going to grow and learn from them. You're going to, like, look up to them and aspire to be oh, I want to be like that kind of person, it actually makes you feel like you want to be a better person. So that's another thing that I would say, like, don't limit yourself with the people that you're comfortable with or the people that are of your same age. It's so important to make connections with people that are much older than you, people that are married, people that have a higher position than you are, or a different nationality, because it will contribute to who you are as a person. It's going to make you a much better person when you surround yourself with people that are much higher than you. Those are the things that kind of learned in the last 5 years. There's so many things that I've learned, and I could go on and on, but I think those three are the things that I would really like for people to kind of start doing with themselves. You don't even have to like be an expat. You don't even have to move to another country, but just making those kind of different choices that are not necessarily like, um, I would say, choose the road less
Like
traveled.
that's hand scripted for you, kind of.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Because I think the world is already like telling us, do this, do that. Like if you go to university, you're going to have this kind of job in the future. You have to finish this. Like, and after that, once you land a job, you're gonna have to have kids. You have to get married, etc. Like the world already kind of planned things for us, right? But you know what? Screw what everybody has done. Like
Mhm.
do you, but like pick the road less traveled. Be a little bit more intentional with the decisions that you're making. Make a little bit of difference. Try to pick an option that's like not what everybody would pick, and then you'll see it. You'll actually see that life is so much better. It's so much more exciting when you choose a different path, different than what others would take.
Yeah, I love that message because something that you touched on I think is so key that I think is not looked into enough is definitely the third point you made, which is about the intentional relationships that you set. Because, like, of course, people hear all the time, oh, like, wait one second. People hear all the time how, oh, like, get out of your comfort zone, and people kind of, woo woo that and just like move on from that. But a lot of people are really comfortable with certain people in their peer group, certain people in their friendship circle, and not even I've even noticed this too uh, when I'm with a certain group of people, I'm definitely striving to do more in life. I'm either doing better academically, I'm doing more things that are involved with the campus, and if I stuck with the same people a few years ago, I there's no way I'd be doing that. So yeah, I love that. That's so true. And also, I would say it fascinates me on how much I pick up on the habits of other people because I was even examining myself and I'm like, wow, I'm so much more productive right now than I was a year ago, and I feel like I'm not doing as much heavy lifting. I don't think I'm lifting that much more. It just kind of like it's just like the lifestyle. It's just like my habit now, which is really great. So and something you said about comfort zone. In my, I just had to state to say this. In my one class, we were talking about what everyone's ideal life would be like, and we were just going around on Zoom, and a lot of people were saying like, yeah, like I want a good, a good job, and I want to live comfortably. I don't care about money. I just want to live comfortably. And I don't know about you, but for me, it seems kind of almost hypocritical in a way because everyone. First of all, I feel like in today's world, you kind of need a decent amount of money to live comfortably, whatever that is. Because in the university I go to, there's a decent amount of people that are in well-off families and pretty good. So comfortable can mean working really hard and working long hours in a store somewhere like that. So I just want to touch on those some of those things. Uh, what would I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on this, Maria. What would you say to a lot of young people, maybe in their 20s in university, that kind of are hesitant to move on from a certain peer group? Because I would say it's better to be with less friends and moving your own direction than people that are holding you back. But what would you say to people that are hesitant to move forward in that direction?
You know, if you're not losing friends when you're getting older and you're not losing friends, that's one sign that you're not growing up.
Mm.
If you have the same amount of friends when you were in your 20s, right when you were in your 30s, you still have the same amount of friends, it's probably because you guys did not grow. You did not grow. And I'm saying this because you have to realize, you have to define in yourself, like, what is a friend? Okay, for me, for example, when I say a friend means somebody that I can open up my deepest, darkest, whatever, or somebody that I know I could share my loneliest moment with. For me, that's a friend. If we're just having a good time, like we're just partying, laughing about stuff, that's not really like a friend. Like, if you cannot accept my other side, meaning my emotional side, my lonely side, and you're not going to be able to like help me out with my problems and stuff, I don't think that that's kind of like considered as a friend. um the thing is, it's true. You will have people right now, for example, you guys, you have met a lot of people from different classes, from different unis, etc., etc. That's fine. You can keep mates around. You can have some other, people that you can connect with, network with. That's fine. But along the way, you will realize in life, you actually don't need a lot of friends. You don't need a lot of people. You know what I noticed with me before? The more that I had friends, the more stressful I was. I thought that having a lot of friends meant that I'm going to be much happier. No. Having a lot of quote unquote friends just made me more stressed. It made me more pressured. Oh, I was not able to answer to this person. I have to live to this other person's expectations. I have to this. I have to please so many people, right? But do you think that those people would do the same for you?
Mm.
However kind of care or love and trust that you have for them, do you think that they can reciprocate that to you? If you think that they can't, girl, they're not a friend. Like, you just need to like maybe, cut yourself some slack and keep them, yes, in your circle, but not as inside of you as a real friend would be. And I would say, for me, I don't have a lot of friends. Now I don't have a lot of friends. Me being in Dubai, and I realize also that that's also one thing. You will realize that if you're doing great, and those people that were there for you before, they're just really happy and just rooting for you, those are real friends. But once you're in your successful stage and those people don't talk to you anymore, they feel like it's a competition between you and them, you guys were never a friend. So right
Mm.
now I realize I'm only keeping really tiny group of friends, very small circle, no competition. Everyone's a grown up. No one's making dramas about anything. If you have a problem, I'll be there for you. If you need something, I'll be there for you, and vice versa. And I don't have any stress. I don't feel like I'm pressured to be somebody that I'm not. That's also one thing. If you call friends, you just have to be comfortable about being who you are around this person. You don't have to pretend to be somebody that you're not.
Mm.
Really. That's one thing. For me, for all the younger people, I would say right now it's going to be difficult to you to let them go, but later on, once you're thriving, once you're growing, you don't even have to like intentionally, like, let's say, hey, I'm not gonna talk to you anymore. You're not gonna be my friend anymore. You don't have to say that,
Right.
right?
Right.
You don't have to like verbally eliminate them in your life. You just learn to like give less energy to those people. You kind of just learn how to protect your energy and give that energy to those people that deserve that energy. You will realize along the way who are the right people to give that energy to. You won't even like later on, probably, you won't even feel that you're not being friends with everybody anymore. You're just like, let's say, naturally, you're just gonna feel more inclined to like give energy to people. Maybe they will realize, how come Maria's not talking to me anymore, blah, 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 whatever. They will just realize it. You're not going to like even like eliminate everybody like verbally, I would say. You're just
Right,
gonna
right.
naturally feel like, you know what? I don't feel the need to like talk to this person anymore. I can like, let's say, ask you how you're doing and whatever, but the relationship of like, hanging out all the time would not be there anymore. You're just going to naturally realize who are the ones that deserve your energy. I mean, who are the ones that could reciprocate the love and care and trust that you could give to them. So the best advice that I would give to younger people, just, feel and learn yourself, learn the energy that you have. Don't feel bad about losing people because like I said, if you're not losing people, once you're growing older, you're not growing up.
Yeah, I could just add something real quick to that because I really believe that uh, even with this experience in my life too, when I've actually done this also, and I've learned that like spending less, not verbally saying, "Oh, I don't want you in my life anymore, bye," like that's not necessary, but saying something, just spending less time with them, not hanging out with them as much. I realized that like when I've done that, there's not that much of a negative reaction. There's a little bit of resistance, but I learned that they weren't really that close to me anyway, so it's not like it's a huge deal. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So one thing I saw that you stated before this meeting, you said that you could read body language from others from your personality types. That's kind of fascinating. I'm curious, is that something you learned about in some book, or you're just more perceptive to? I'm wondering how you got into that.
Um, I think that it's it's really a personality thing. Now that I knew more about it, there was this one guy who told me that I should go get my personality checked. So there's this personality test on the website. He says this one's super accurate. You should take this one. And once you get your result from the test, I want you to let me know, and then I'll send you the video to learn more about the personality that you have. Turns out that the personality that I have, it's INFJ. So my personality type is INFJ. If you type it, it actually says that my personality type is one of the rarest. It is the rarest personality types among the 16 types of personalities, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what's funny? Not to brag, modesty aside, but the other people who are like the known people who are within the same personality type: Adolf Hitler, Mother Teresa, and Jesus Christ. So we all have the same personalities. So that's how
Hmm.
rare the personality type is. And in that personality type, because we're like let's say we're very intuitive people, we can actually kind of get a very strong vibe as to how others kind of feel inside. It says there in the video about my personality, it's almost like a superpower of the people with these kinds of personality type where they can feel the body language, nonverbal kind of expression of people, the change in voice, the change of tone, the change of like body language. We're able to feel that, and sometimes it's a blessing and a curse because it makes you. And it's also, I think, part of the personality where we're able to kind of be more empathizing, let's say, because we kind of feel how you feel. We kind of adjust our way of responding, or you know um let's say interacting with you based on how you feel. So it's not like I have multiple personality disorders, right? But it's just I just know that you, as a certain person, you are this way. I can notice that you have some slight changes in your tone, in your voice, in your body language. I feel that you're not as comfortable now. Therefore, the way I'm going to be treating you is depending on your vibe, right?
Hmm.
It's not something that we learn. it's not something that I learned. I just happen to like sense it growing up. It's kind of weird. It's kind of I don't know. Maybe we're just a little bit more sensitive to people, um, especially like with people at work. It's very helpful because sometimes there are bosses, there are people, or there are colleagues. Obviously, especially when you meet a lot of people, everyone's different, right? So the way that I kind of put myself or try to like blend myself is through that superpower. So the change in voice, the change in like movement, there's a slight slouch. I know when somebody's kind of feeling something. I know when somebody's awkward. So I'm trying to like not be as awkward as well. So I try to be like inviting. Yeah, I can't really tell you that I learned about it or read about it in a book. It's just really your
Okay.
personality. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I can relate to that a little bit. Not the personality type per se, but when you know someone's like, for example, I'm sure you've dealt with this where someone you're talking to, you pretty much know like 99% chance that that person didn't really hear what you said, but they're like, yeah, 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 and then you ask a question, then they say yeah again, and and I'm like, all right, I know you're not listening to me, so I just you have to just stop talking and move on. Oh. I'm just like, all right. So that I think it's kind of odd when you deal with that because the person's kind of pretending to be interested, but I know they're not. So I'm just like,
Mm,
why are they like? It's all right if you just don't want to talk about this anymore, you know. So
mm,
that's
mm.
something that's I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think it's also like helpful with regards to like let's say being in like a social situation. Um Sometimes when you find somebody standing, for example, even the, I don't know, but you're able to read, right? Like how a person looks or stares at something looks the fact that they're looking at their watch means something or whatever kind of thing. I think you don't really have to have like a personality type like similar to mine to be able to read people. I think you just have to be a little bit more sensitive with
Mhm.
regards to how people respond or like how people kind of, nod or like whatever. And it's really just coming with experience, I guess. Like when you meet a lot of people, you just kind of like, oh, okay, this is how this person is feeling, most likely based on your, past experience. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's very interesting how much a little effort can go a long way with that. Just because I so many people I think are caught up in their heads about the content of what their words and what they're saying and what they're trying to
Mm,
tell somebody, and they're not really. They're almost they. It looks like they care about what the other person's feeling, but a lot of times they're not. I've noticed that. Like a lot of times they're just trying to
mm,
talk to the person instead of talking with them. Uh, I, I'm reading one book. It's called Crucial Conversations. It's very fascinating, and I'm a communication major, so I'm interested in this also. And
mm-hmm.
from what the main one of the main points of the book is making sure that it's spreading meaning in a conversation, building up meaning, building up safety. And a lot of people go from um, a lot of people react with either silence or violence, not literally violence, but like silence or violence. And silence is more so people withdrawing and just being really quiet if there's a heated debate going on or a heated conversation, or the violent aspect where people just yell and say, "Oh," like kind of react to like, "Oh, you're doing this again," or "Oh, you're saying this again," rather than actually debating the content of the person's, you know,
Mm,
conversation. So I've just noticed that a lot of times in with conversations, people don't build up the safety aspect of how a person's actually feeling, and then that's where a lot of people don't go anywhere with the conversations. People don't go anywhere with it. So when you say like the social situation, you see someone looking at the watch or like being silent when someone's talking about, let's say, someone's talking about, oh, let's hang out, let's do a party afterward, and that's the only person that's not invited. We're clearly like I've seen this happen too. I almost feel bad
mm,
for them when some of my friends are asking me to do something, and this person's next to me that's not that close to us at the lunch table, and they're like, oh, and then I ask, don't even invite him. So I'm just like, you know, at least it doesn't seem like they noticed that, but I feel like I noticed that. I'm sure you've seen
Yeah.
something similar to that.
And
Right.
it feels it feels so cringy, right? Like you just
Yeah.
feel you have this like also me for example when there's a when it's a tense situation my body kind of reacts to it like my ears become warm. I just know there's something awkward, and when I have that like awkward like radar like on and I feel like nobody else senses that, I just feel so cringy. Like I just want to hide. Like how come you guys are not seeing the same way I'm seeing the situation? It's so bad, and it's sometimes like I said, it's a blessing and a curse, really. And most of the time, I tell you, just to touch on the thing we shared about conversation, most of the time, conversations are a failure because conversations are not actually conversation when most people what they do is, for example, I'm talking, you're not actually going to respond based on what I just said. You're just going to respond because you want to respond. You're not responding because you're not like responding to understand. You're not
Right.
responding to listen. You just want to say something because I said something, right? Sometimes most conversations like that. I said something and then I'm done. Okay, next. Okay,
Start the
your turn.
stopwatch, then I start going.
Yeah, exactly. But conversations need to be like because whatever I said, you're going to respond to what you're trying to actually listen and understand what I'm saying. Whereas conversations, if you're just saying something for the heck of saying something because I said something, that's not actually a conversation. That's just two two people just trying to, put one thing after the other.
Right. Just getting their point across as without really hearing the you're not really hearing the argument that the other person has, or even if they do hear it, it's more often than not it's kind of dismissed because I've seen even if you still disagree with the argument, a lot of people would never acknowledge the other side at all. Like, oh, I see how you, like, I can see you believe this because X, Y, and Z. Though I still think it's this because
Mhm.
continuing to go on and on with that. Um, but yeah, I think this is a really good conversation. I'm just curious, Maria, where should people go to see your content and links or anything like that? Where should people look?
Sure. So, you guys, if you don't know, I have just recently started my podcast. It's called Rising Boss Podcast. All of the updates and links, they're available on my Instagram at Rising Boss Podcast. Rising Boss Podcast is also available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and all other major streaming platforms. Yeah, so that's where you can find whatever I just talked about. But it's going to be mainly workplace stuff. So if you're somebody who would, like to listen about those kind of things, we just aired the first episode last night, and there's a lot more episode to come in the next few weeks. So again, that's at Rising Boss Podcast on Instagram for updates on topics and guests.
All right, great. Sounds good. I will link that below also, so to make it easier for viewers.
Awesome.
And yeah, thank you, Maria, for taking the time to come on. I thought this was a productive conversation that I think people can take from. So appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And if you guys have the time, go visit Dubai.
Sounds good. Sounds good.